Hello, welcome back to another live. Happy Wednesday. Cheers. I have a fresh giant cup of coffee. I got some not so good news not too long ago, so I'm potentially a little bit of a mess. I had every intention today of maybe finding a different background that was more exciting. I was going to do my hair. I had lots of good intentions today that got it completely blown out the window, but we're still here and we're still chugging, and it is just your reminder for me that two reminders. One, things are not going to go perfectly all the time. And we've got to prioritize what's most important. What can I do? What's in my control? And number two is, and this goes for every single person in your life, you have no idea. You don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes for them. And so just to be kind to everyone. So hello, hi, let's get it started with what is one small win that you have to share from the last week. If you were here live, please say hello in the chat. And if you are part of the replay fam, please say hello down in the comments and let us know what your win is. I love going back and reading the comments. I'm a little behind on YouTube comments right now, but I love reading them and hearing what your wins are. While I wait for some of those comments to come in, my win is I ordered my desk, which if you've been following along with my goals this year, that was technically on my January goal sheet. But when I put it on my January goal sheet, we were moving January 23rd. And when the move, and I didn't want to order the desk until we got our bedroom furniture into our bedroom so that I could really measure what size desk would fit best in the spot that I had planned for it. And so when we were moving the 23rd, I thought, well, I'm definitely going to get that done in January. But then we didn't move till the 30th. And then we were out of town. And so it was just one thing after the other. But I did, literally yesterday, get it ordered. It's supposed to be here Saturday. So hopefully I can get it all set up, get it built over the weekend. And then by next week, I can be at my desk for both the community coaching call as well as the live. For the coaching call, I'm not super concerned. So my my desk is gonna be facing a wall. My bed will be behind me and the windows are on the other side of that. And so if I'm sitting like this at my desk, it's going to be super duper backlit. And for the community calls, my head's this big. You're looking at the slides. It's not that big of a deal. So I'm not super concerned. I'm just going to sit at my desk. For the lives, I'm playing with the idea of trying to figure out a way to turn myself around so that my desk is behind me and that's my background. Or truthfully, I could just come down here and it could just be, but this blank wall is so boring. But there's nothing on the walls down here yet anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I don't know yet. I also could, I see there's a bunch of comments. I'm going to get to them. Let me quickly shift you. This is a corner and my plan is to get a plant there. You can kind of see the plant thing. And then we have this shelving thing here with all the bar stuff. What I could do is put myself in the corner, have the plant on one side of me, and then maybe put something on the bar shelf just each week for the live. I don't know. We'll see. Once I get the desk set up, I'll play with it and see how it goes. I don't want to stick with this boring white background for forever. I know some videos love a plain background. I'm like, this is boring. Exactly. It's weird to see you without something colorful. It's so weird. And then the basement is where the shelves are. And so I could do that too. Although the bottom half of the shelves, I don't know if you could really see them, are all of Lila's toys. So I don't know. Thank you, Monique. I appreciate that. Hello from a snowy Nebraska. It is also a snowy Chicago. It is coming down. I can see it out my window. It is definitely snowing here too. Started decluttering. I love that. Finally started losing weight after surgery complications. I'm glad that you're back on top of it. Finished and feeling better really is the more important piece of that, Allie. Finished your second book of the month. Been consistent with a skincare routine. Nothing like getting engaged to get you focused on your skin, right? I did the same thing. Well, I mean, if you've been around, I got engaged in October of 2019 and January of 2020 was I'm going to do all the things. And I started getting regular facials and I signed up for a monthly service at a place in New York. And I think I got 2 and then the pandemic hit. Happy Wednesday from snowy. It's snowy in a lot of places, huh? Been consistent with working out 5 days a week, which means I consistently took 2 days of rest, which is equally important. Definitely. I'm late, but I'm here. Good to see you. Hit your water goal every day. And hello from a snowy Colorado as well. All the snow, all the places, y'all. I think this is one of those snowstorms. I know it's coming down and it's supposed to come down for the next, a good number of hours here. But the news platforms and like, oh my God, it's going to be a total like snowstorm. You're not gonna be able to go anywhere. You're not gonna be able to drive. And it's like, the people in the city can drive the snow and it is supposed to stop. So like today's commute home might be kind of a disaster for people. Because it started maybe an hour ago and it's not supposed to stop until overnight. But like by tomorrow morning, I think it's going to be just fine. So you keep the snow, please. We're supposed to get wintry mix. I do appreciate a snow over a wintry mix. I will take, like, I would rather it be actually snowing than be that like slightly too warm. Wintry mix and ice is way more dangerous. I ended up picking a desk from Wayfair. So what was important to me was that it was long because I have a good bit of wall space, but that it was narrow because I don't have a ton of depth space. And so I looked at a lot of options and so many of them were way too deep. And I mean, it would have fit, but I would have like found myself backing up in, like into my bed and that wouldn't have been comfortable. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a good fit. End up being from Wayfair. I mean, it's cold and no news station could agree on how much snow. Yeah. I mean, I saw everything from 1 inches to 10 inches for us too. I'm like, oh man, hopefully we are on the downhill slope of winter and we're going to get into spring very soon, friends. All right, let's do my monthly goal check-in. So here are the status of my goals. Not a whole lot has changed. I finally gave myself credit for checking off. Obviously I started unpacking, so I get credit for that progress. Truthfully, my project list, I probably could check off as done. I'm sure I will continue to add to it, but it's at a point right now where I don't feel like I need to sit down and like there was a day last week where I just like sat down and like thought about each room in the house and like added things to the project list. Right now, it'll just like get added as I go. So as it pertains to this, I actually probably could check that off. And then the rest of it is just kind of as it is. I may not end up doing a lot of my one-time steps this month, and that just is what it is. Weekly steps have been so-so. I did get all my workouts in last week. Really glad that I lowered that goal in general from what I was trying to accomplish. And then the daily steps have been, again, hit or miss. When we were traveling, and if you didn't hear me talk about this 2 weeks ago, the topic of the live was when life throws you a curveball, and life definitely threw us a massive curveball. And so we ended up on a family trip down to Texas. My husband is still down there. And so that kind of threw off my game a little bit. I did do some other things, but I'm doing my best. And what's important in my mind is that I just keep tracking and I just keep acknowledging it. And even if that's a bunch of nothing, I mean, you can look at like the music one. I didn't listen to music by myself. I didn't hit my water goal a lot of the days we were down there. And it just, I just got to keep going. I just got to keep trying. I also desperately need a haircut. I scheduled one for a couple weeks from now. I haven't gotten my haircut, y'all, since Mother's Day of last year. I mean, obviously it's not Mother's Day this year. That hasn't happened yet, but I need a haircut in a bad way. So that is the update. Maggie, I mean, it could get worse, but I keep looking outside. I know. I felt like everybody made such a big deal of it. And I mean, it is snowing. And I guess if it continues at this pace for the next, 7-8 hours, it is going to make a difference. But like, I don't know. I feel like Chicago's gotten worse. I feel like they know how to handle this. I'm not concerned, but, okay. Shall we keep talking about our action steps? So whether or not you were here last week, we are focusing on action steps this month. Such a highly requested topic, such a common question that I get where everyone is like, how do I come up with the action steps for my goals? What do you mean when you say monthly, weekly, daily steps? Can you give us more examples? And I have done a number of series in the past, which I will leave linked down below, of different action step examples sorted by type of goal. That is what we have done the last 2 times, is type of goal. Now we are doing the type of action step. So last week we talked all about one-time steps. You don't necessarily need to watch these in order, although last week's did have a little bit more of an overview in general to the series, but it's not necessarily building on itself because they are different things. But I do think they're all helpful. I think knowing the different types of action steps. So if you didn't catch last week's, I would definitely recommend checking that one out after you watch this one, or if you're here watching the replay, pause and go back. I don't know. I do think that they are all helpful in their own way. So this week we are doing weekly action steps, which historically has been the hardest category for me. And I think the biggest reason for that is I feel like in my mind, things are either consistent, they happen at the same time consistently, or it's like a one-off thing. And so daily habits are easier for me because they're consistent every single day. And yeah, I miss days, but I pick something based on the average day. Monthly steps are one-time steps are one-off things, and I schedule time for them and I do them. Weekly steps for me have always been hard because my weeks have never consistently looked the same. And so it's hard for me to say, like, I'm going to do this on Tuesdays or I'm going to do this on Fridays because my weeks don't always look like that. And so when I have weekly steps, I typically have to figure out, okay, when during the week am I going to do that thing? And like, how can I incorporate that? And that is just, it's harder for me to wrap my mind around. It doesn't mean I can't do it. Doesn't mean I don't do it sometimes. Obviously I have weekly steps. I mean, like you've seen them before, but like it is not always intuitive for me. And so I want to start again with a reminder. I definitely said this last week as well. You don't need all of these types of steps to be successful. You don't need monthly, weekly, and daily in order to achieve your goals. And I know some of you have come to me in the past with like, oh, this month I only have like one-time step, no weekly and all daily. Is that bad? No. There's no right or wrong number of steps in any given category. I will tell you, I do not think that you need something in every single category in order to be successful. You guys know, I've told you this before. If you fill up every single line, unless you have nothing going on that month, that's probably too much. So just that friendly reminder. But what it comes down to is what works best for you and your goals. So let's get specific. The basic definition, obviously, of a weekly one-time or a weekly step is something that only needs to happen once a week. Those are the easier ones, right? Like cleaning something. You could clean the bathrooms every day, but realistically, you put that down as a weekly step because it only has to happen once a week. And that's a great way to tackle them. These are the ones I tend to struggle with the most, though. Truth for me. For whatever reason, it is just tough. And I am working on it. I am trying to be really on top of my cleaning routine now that this is like a house that we own and I want it to like stay clean and stay nice. And it felt like I was like given this like fresh start because it was obviously professionally cleaned before we moved into it. And, but it's still tough for me to sometimes stay on top of these. So I don't always put these on my goals. These are just they're not things that I always try to do. I try to incorporate them in other ways, but things that only need to happen once a week for me, I tend to like skip them a lot. But this is a very obvious option and works for a lot of people. If you're going to pick something like this, if you can, my suggestion is to try to do it at the same time every week, right? If you're going to clean something, you're going to do it every time on Thursdays, or if you're going to meal prep, you're going to do that on Sundays. You're going to grocery shop. Those are some other examples of things that only really need to be done once a week. Another option of a weekly step is a further breakdown of a monthly item, right? So we're going to use reading as our example here. Let's say and we talked about reading last week as an example too. So we'll start even higher level. Let's say that you have a full goal to read, my math is short-circuiting, 12 books in the quarter, right? Or about 50 books a year. So you break it down to 12 books a quarter. Then you break that down even further and you say, I'm going to read 4 books in a month. By the way, when you're breaking down things like that, you don't always have to break them down perfectly. They don't need to be broken down like, evenly. You could break them down in whatever way works best for you, but it's a whole nother topic. So let's say you say my monthly goal, my monthly one-time step is to read 4 books a month. So then you could break that down even further and say my weekly step is to read 1 book a week. That makes sense. And maybe you hit that every single week, right? You read 1 book a week for 4 weeks and you hit your monthly goal. Or there might be a week that you miss it and you don't quite finish. You picked up a longer book that week, so you don't quite finish it. So you don't get that check mark because you didn't finish it. But then the next week you finish 2. You could still hit that monthly goal, even if you don't hit your weekly goal. But by having it in the weekly section, you're not only seeing that progress throughout the month, but you're giving yourself credit for doing it a little bit at a time instead of like procrastinating it all to the end. And this could work with so many different things and not even like obvious things like that, right? I had a goal to finish unpacking. I really don't think that's going to happen in February, but that was my goal going into February. I could have in my weekly section put unpack 5 boxes or something like that to get me a little bit closer to finishing unpacking. Actually, as I say that, maybe it would be helpful for me to go around and count how many boxes there are left to unpack and break it down in that way somehow. It's an idea. But the reminder here with this example is that it's okay to have the same goal in more than one category. In fact, spoiler alert, I'll use reading again next week in the daily section because you could have reading in your monthly section, your weekly section, and your daily section. That is allowed. You don't just have to pick one. Now, the other way a lot of people use the weekly section is if it's something that you want to do multiple times per week. And if that is the case, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios, 3 options to think about here. So the example I'm going to use is, let's say you want to work out 3 times a week. And so if you are putting that only in the weekly section, like me, I want you to put it 1 line for each time. So you'll notice, right? Instead of writing workout 3 times, I have workout, workout, workout. That is there so that if there is a week that I work out twice, I get to see 2 check marks and not none, right? I know that that might seem silly. And I know for some of you who aren't motivated by check marks, you're like, that's so silly. Even if you're not motivated by check marks, I would still encourage you to do it this way because it's still information. It's still data. You're seeing like consistently how many times you did work out. And maybe you're seeing, if you put it on, let's say you have a goal, let's say you're super ambitious and you set a goal to do it 5 times because that's what you were doing at some point and you kind of got off and you put it 5 times. But then over the course of the month, you see that consistently you're checking it off 2 times, maybe 3. So then maybe next month you set the goal at 3, something a little bit more tangible. But if you had just set it written in the row, work out 5 times and you didn't check it off any times, you don't actually know how many times you worked out. Right? On my wins tracker from last month, which by the way, community, we're doing a good job this year, right? We're filling out our wins trackers. I put how many workouts I did in January. I would have never known that number if I didn't have it broken down this way. So that is option 1. Now, let's say if you are going to go ahead and put it in the daily section, knowing you won't do it every day, the weekly section can be the summary. So what I mean by that, go back to our workout example. Let's say, and this is how my sister does hers, because that's just how her goals have shaken out. And she also working out is, I don't know if I would say an easy check mark for her, but she's pretty good at hitting that one. She kind of likes to see which days of the week she actually does it consistently. So she has it in the daily section. She's not trying to work out every day. That's not realistic for like the majority of people, unless you're like really a physical athlete. And even then you probably could use a physical athlete, a professional athlete. Even then you probably need a rest day in there. So you put it in the daily section, knowing you're not going to check it off every day, but then you do check mark every time you do it. Then in the weekly section, you could have the summary, right? So again, let's say the goal is to work out 5 times a week. In the daily section, you check it off. In the weekly section, you put workout 5 times. Now, if there's a week that you work out 4 times, you're not going to get that check mark in the weekly section, but you're still going to see those 4 workouts that you did down in the daily section. Okay. That's option number 2, is you can put the number summary in the weekly if it's also going down in the daily section. Now, option number 3 is kind of the opposite. So if in the daily section, you're keeping something more reasonable and the weekly section is there to push you a little bit more. And so I'm going to start actually with the steps example, because this is an example I've given a lot of times before, and I've totally used this for myself. Let's say that you want to hit 10,000 steps a day, which by the way, if you've never heard me rant about this, and I learned this from a health and fitness professional, that number came from a pedometer company to try to sell pedometers. The data shows that 7,000 to 8,000 steps a day is actually what you need for your health. That is, the data has proven that is where you get the health benefits. But for number simplicity, we're going to stick with 10,000 steps. Now, getting 10,000 steps a day on your average days, let's call them, is hard. Let's say that's tough for you. Let's say you work at home and you've got kids, you're carting around to places, you're spending a lot of time in the car, being mom Uber. And so getting 10,000 steps a day on average is tough. Let's say you're like the average goal that you're working towards is 7,000 steps a day. That's your average goal. So in the daily section, you got 7,000 steps a day. But then in the weekly section, you want to push yourself to average 10,000 a day. So you put a weekly goal to hit 70,000 for the week. So that means on some of the days, you're going to have to push yourself a little bit and get more than 10, right? Your average days are 7, but then let's say on the weekends, you take really long walks around the neighborhood with your family and you're getting lots more. I don't know what the math is going to need to average out what that looks like to get an average of 10,000 steps a day or 70,000 steps a week. And that is what I am doing with veggies. So I have a goal to have one vegetable a day. And in January, I noticed that I was hitting that five times a week. That is what I was hitting. And so now my ultimate goal is still to do one per day. But and some of you might be laughing at me and I don't care and some of you might be totally getting me. Like vegetables are tough. Okay. They're just tough sometimes and it is what it is. So, right. Ultimately the ultimate goal, like the long-term goal is like multiple vegetables a day. That would be healthy. But for now, I'm working on one serving of vegetables per day. But what I decided to push myself a little bit because I hit 5 vegetables 5 days a week on average, not on average, like literally every week in January, I'm pretty sure I hit five days a week. So the only way to increase it in the daily section would be to go up to like 2 a day, right? And if I can't even hit 1 a day every day, like there's no way I'm going to hit 2 a day. But what I can do is add a weekly goal. So my weekly goal is to hit 7 vegetables over the course of the week. Now, that could look like hitting it every single day, or it could look like one of the days I get 2 servings and another one of the days I get 2 servings. And then I get my 7 over the course of the week. Does that make sense? So it's pushing me a little bit more than my daily step without making my daily step unattainable. And I'm using my weekly as that pushing myself a little bit more. So those are the options of things that you want to do more than once per week. And it comes down to, you may need to try a few things. You may need to tweak things and try and figure out what works best for you and your goals. And it's not going to be perfect every single time. And you're going to have to maneuver and figure out things that work best for you. But those are some options to consider. Okay, I need a sip of coffee. We're going to talk about examples again. Remember, these examples are for inspiration, not things that you have to do, not things like these are not required. These are not like, oh, these are the only action steps I can pick for these goals. No. These are ideas to get you inspired, to get your gears turning. Okay. Just like last week, we have them broken down by different categories of goals. So we are going to start with weekly or with finance. You'll notice that for some of these, just like last week, some goals have more than others because there are only so many weekly things you can do related to your finances, right? But here are some ideas. Make coffee at home a certain number of times. I love this one because this is an example of not trying to do all or nothing, right? Maybe you are and I'm like literally thinking of somebody in my personal life who I adore dearly, but is very, very, very good at going to get coffee out. And it is not reasonable for us to be like, okay, all or nothing, you're going to just only make coffee at home. What? Like that is not realistic. Instead, we're going to shrink it down, right? So maybe right now, the number of times they make coffee at home is 0. Okay. So month 1, the goal could be 1 time a week that we make them at home. And then, so whichever day makes the most sense, like maybe it's today because it's snowing outside. And then you build your way up. And again, in the spirit of not being all or nothing, we're not working towards like 100%. Maybe it's the ultimate goal is 1 per week out, right? And 6 out of the 7 days are coffee at home, but something you're working towards. Weekly budget check-in, paying the bills, stick to budget, update sinking funds, weekly finance meeting with spouse, save a certain amount of money per week. We talked about saving a certain amount of money last week as a one-time step. You could break that down into a weekly step as well, working your way up to that monthly. Reconcile accounts, eat at home a certain number of times, another way to save money, and track expenses. I will say this, I'm jumping the gun a little bit to daily. I think that if you are tracking expenses for the first time, it is more beneficial to do it on a daily basis. If you wait to do it on a weekly basis, there's going to be so many expenses that you can't keep up. Highly, highly recommend starting with it on a daily basis. And then if you work your way up, maybe it is you can do it on a weekly basis. When I was doing just my own budget and expense tracking, I did eventually get up to 2 times a week. I would do it on Mondays and Fridays. Mondays is I would track all the things from the weekend, and Fridays I would track all the things from the week. I never felt like I could do it just once a week. That never worked well for me. It just felt like way too many things. Then once, of course, it was mine and Sam's expenses, well, then I'm back to daily because I can't do it on a weekly basis. So this is an example, but I just want to add that to my 2 cents there on tracking expenses as a weekly step. All right, next category is home. Here are some weekly action ideas for home. Clear out expired food, clean a specific area, declutter one room, weekly cleaning routine, prep the house to sell, get 1 box of stuff out, Sunday reset, clean the bathrooms, 2 hours of decluttering, 60 minutes on one room, and put the laundry away. Another thing I will comment here that is on the notes for the daily, I'm pretty sure, but it actually applies to the weekly too. Some of these steps are temporary, right? Something like decluttering one room. In theory, this is temporary, right? You're decluttering one room until you feel like you're in a good place. Some of these are probably more habits, things that you want to instill that you are going to continue and not stop, like a Sunday reset. It may change what it looks like and what time of day it's at, but you probably intend to keep that for some extended period of time. All that to say, you don't approach them any differently, but it's just something to think about. Okay, next category is health. So work out a certain number of times per week. We obviously did that one extensively in the examples. A weekly meal plan, a weekly step goal, which does not have to be your daily goal times 7. You know what? It could even be less if you wanted it to be, but most of the time with weekly or with steps, I would always try to push. I would either keep it the same, right? If you have a daily step goal of 5,000, I would have your weekly step at 35, and you could totally just keep it the same, or you could push yourself a little bit, and it doesn't have to be much. Cook one new recipe, a certain number of workout minutes, eat out a certain number of, is what that should say, a certain number of times, prep breakfast, prep lunches, schedule workouts, weigh in, go to PT. I love it. And then the last category is personal, which just encompasses everything that anybody sent in. These are your examples, regardless of what kind of goal it was. So apply to a certain number of jobs, create for 15 minutes, have a family meeting, attend a class, practice weekly, work on coursework, write for a certain number of minutes, watch the Goals with Laken call. I love that one. Plan for the week, quality time with family, bubble bath, and read one book. Again, just examples, just ideas to get your gears turning. So that is all I have on weekly action steps. Any comments, questions, thoughts on this topic category? Going once. All right. The rest of the time is yours then. Where's my Q&A pop up? Feel free to ask anything. You can ask any questions. It can be about literally anything. Oh, of course. And the suggestions are helpful. Okay. I'm so glad. Thank you, Shannon. Okay. You are welcome to ask any questions. It can be about your individual goals or struggles. I promise, even if you feel like it is just so unique to you, somebody else is going to benefit from your question. It could be about a topic. If you don't know how to phrase it into a question, you could just put topic, whatever the topic is, whatever is on your mind, whatever you want to chat about. It can be goal related, not goal related. The next 30 minutes are yours. Let's chat. Definitely made me think about temporary tasks versus habits. Yeah, I definitely have this in the daily section because I think this is really applicable to daily, but it is actually applicable to weekly too. Some of the weekly stuff we have, right? If I look at mine, all 3 of mine actually are things I'd like to keep doing. They're not things I would like to just stop. They're things that I would like to continue on. Maybe my creative time could lower a little bit, but it's either way. You know this. You've heard me say this a million times. You got to start with where you're at. We've got to start with where you're at and not try to go from 0 to a million, right? like I said, everything is on a spectrum. You've also heard me talk about this before, right? Everything's on a spectrum. So let's talk about my vegetables again, right? So on one end of the spectrum is I eat 0 vegetables. I wouldn't say that I was there, but when I set this as a goal, maybe I was like having a couple vegetables a week, right? And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is the ultimate goal. This is where I want to get to, right? Which is, what is the recommended serving? It's like 2 to 3 a day. That's a lot. Okay. Here we go. Here's like ultimate dream vegetables. I am not going to just wake up and get over here. If I had set a goal to like have 2 vegetables a day in January, do you know how many times I would have hit that? Probably 0. It was probably 0. Maybe one day, but probably 0 that I hit 2 per day. And so instead, I'm inching my way up, right? I'm inching my way and I'm picking goals that are a little bit bigger, right? So right now, my goals are 1 per day and 7 per week. I probably could tell you that my March goal is probably going to continue to be 1 per day and maybe 10 per week. Maybe, but maybe not. Like it really kind of depends on how the end of February goes. Because that's the other thing to remember. In general, you don't always have to increase it. You could keep focusing on the same thing. Increase it when you're ready. So heck, maybe March is going to look exactly the same and it's going to be 1 per day, 7 per week. And then my eventual increase could maybe be 10 per week, right? Which is averaging 1.5 per day. And then maybe eventually I will set a goal to do 2 per day. Maybe. I really would have to start getting creative with vegetables if I'm going to do 2 per day. So, just something to think about. I keep coming back to the word momentum, and temporary tasks can fuel it too. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the idea for a stretch goal for the week to enhance a daily task. This could be a new item in my morning routine. Yes, I love that. It's the first only time I ever did it was with steps. And I wish I remember like when I started that or where that came from, like who I got that idea from. I honestly don't remember. But it was like, I do think Jessina, who I talk about all the time, y'all, when we talk about health and fitness, I reference my friend Jessina, even though she's an Eagles fan and she's all happy and I'm all not. It's fine. She encouraged me, I think, when we first started working together to do just a weekly step goal, like to work on it per week and not worry about it per day. I like having both. I like having something, that I can hit as a daily. I'm thinking steps is going to be one of my Q2 goals. When it finally gets a little warmer, as I'm staring at the snow, like steps is probably not something I'm going to work on right now. Although I could just like walk up and down the stairs of my house now, but yeah. Stephanie, thank you for including your name. I would love to start a list of inexpensive or free reward ideas for making progress on goals along the way besides food and pedicures. This is a great idea. I did a whole video on rewards that I will link again for you, and maybe it will spark some ideas. And anyone else is welcome to share their ideas, whether you're here live or watching the replay that you have for Stephanie, but I'll share the ones that come to the top of my mind. So one of the ideas that I always love is saving episodes of things that you love. So whether it's a TV show, a podcast, YouTube channel, but or a book that you already own, right? But reading or watching or listening to something you love as a reward, as opposed to just like something that you do. And I've been doing that with myself with the new SVU up because SVU is back, which is like the only show I watch right now, like in real time. There's nothing else I watch right now, which gets me thinking, are we waiting a whole nother year for Dragons? For House of the Dragon? Like it's not till next year. Is that right? Because that's very annoying. But I tie getting some sort of house, it was packing and now it's unpacking related to the new SVU. Like that's one of the things that I do. But the other thing is just other things that you already own that you don't do because it's something that you like think of as a reward, and you could keep thinking of it that way, right? Like, so maybe it's like an art project in your house or doing a puzzle or busting out a new book or playing a new game, right? Like along those same lines, like something else that you have in your house that you can do. I had another one and now I lost it. Oh, You've been working on a list. I love this. Make a recipe that is special. Taking a weekend day off from productivity and do what you want. I love that. I think that is more of a necessity that we all need in our lives as opposed to a reward, but it could start as a reward. Because this is something I've been trying to do in general in my life in the last year is that one weekend day, there's no plans. Or there's no to-do list. Maybe we have plans, like social plans, but I'm not trying to do any housework. I'm not trying to do any work. I'm not trying to do any goals. Like it's just a day. I love that one. Yeah, Shannon, I'm assuming this comment was back on what I was talking about before. It doesn't always have to increase. Steady progress is just that. It's steady. Totally. Yeah, House of the Dragon is not till next year. That's what I was afraid of. That's so annoying. I get it. They've got to CGI all these giant dragons. And I'm like, it's hard. It's fine. It's fine. Not always a free reward, but taking a random PTO day from work. I love that suggestion too. Yeah. I also think asking yourself, like, what is considered a reward for you, right? We're all different and everybody has different things. And so this may not necessarily be like, quote unquote, free, but like if you are somebody who loves being around friends, can you schedule time with a friend as your reward? Or if you are somebody who loves being alone, can you schedule time alone as your reward? Or maybe it's as simple as like being able to sleep in, like not setting the alarm, or like what are the things that light you up? Like what makes you happy? That's one of the questions I have in the prep work. Like what makes you happy? That's literally the question. Anything on that page could also be a great reward. Yes, we also talked about the accomplishment board to see all the wins. I love how many of you have started an accomplishment board. This was an idea from someone in our community that she shared during the goal setting workshops this year about an accomplishment board. So it's kind of like a reverse vision board, right? Where it starts the beginning of the year empty. And then over the course of the year, she's going to add to it all the things, like pictures of the things that she accomplishes. And I love this idea. I think it's so cool. And so there's so many of you that have shared different versions of it, different pictures of it in the Facebook group to just see like what it looks like. And I love that. Yes. So good. Hopefully some of those ideas were helpful, Stephanie, but I think just like getting specific about what you like, how you like to spend your time. Yeah. I've got mine and it has stuff on it, but I realized I'm horrible about taking pics. You could take a pic after the fact. You could also just like go find a picture on the internet. It doesn't have to be your picture. Yeah. I know it's hard sometimes to find rewards. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, if let's say talking to people about your goals and sharing them lights you up and like that can count as a reward, like being able to talk about it and being able to tell people. And it could be me. I could be your people if you need someone to come tell. That's why we share wins every week here. We share wins on the coaching calls. We share wins here. You're welcome to send me wins via DM whenever you want. I'm always here to listen to your wins. Okay, great ideas. I hope something sparked for you. Alrighty. What else? What else is on your mind? What else do you have questions about? What are you struggling with? What do you need? What reminder do you need? What a pep talk do you need? Do you also need a reminder to go get a haircut? It's just the ends are so bad. Oh, I don't know. I don't know why I don't like going to get haircuts. It's like not my favorite activity. I literally raged myself into completing my goal habits last night. I was like, you are going to do this. Okay. I don't necessarily want you to rage yourself into completing your habits. But this is a good reminder that it's not always going to be just like smooth sailing, right? And that is why either or picking habits that are for your harder days right? Like, sure, I would love to have all my habits or have all my habits be all my best days. But most days are not that, right? Most days are not your best days. Again, let's come back to our spectrum, right? There are going to be days that you are the superhero version of you. If you are someone who has monthly fluctuating hormones, there are certain days of the month that you just have all this energy. You feel so good about yourself and you just are getting all the things done. And then there are some days that you are over here on this end of the spectrum and you are just like, I can't even fathom life. I can't even get out of this bed. I just don't want to do anything. And like those days suck. Most days are somewhere in the middle. So picking your habits based on the middle version of you, based on what you can do on an average day. That might mean that some days it feels a little bit too easy. You're like, I did all the things, I checked all of them off. That's okay. It doesn't mean you need to increase them. And then some days on the other end, you are like this, raging yourself into doing these habits. And it takes a little bit more umph. I don't know about bullying. I don't necessarily want you to bully yourself, but doing something, you're going to have to push yourself a little bit more. And that might be some of the days. I don't want that to be most of the days, I guess is my point. So if you did it one time, like if you did it once and that's what you're doing, like, okay, fine. But most days, I don't want that to be your situation. And so I want you to pick, and so that might mean that you skip days like we all do. Or your other option here is having options, having different levels of your habits. And I've talked about this before in a number of places as well, but having options of a habit that, okay, on my superhero days, this is what I do. On my average days, this is what I do. And on my low end days, this is what I do. And this is what I do on my low end days could be nothing, by the way. It could be taking the day off. It could be resting. So there may be habits that you have different choices that you pick from. The last thing I will say and remind you of, your spectrum is you and your life. Very much dependent on your physical abilities, any physical things that you may struggle with, mental abilities, any mental things you may struggle with, your general life structure and energy levels, etc. So everybody's spectrum is going to be a little bit different, right? Everybody's spectrum is going to be in a little bit of a different spot. And so you cannot compare what your high end is to somebody else's high end, because somebody it is going to be different for different people. And so that is, I feel like this lot comes out a lot with reading, when people are like, I read this many books and I read this many books. And I want you to keep telling people that. I want you to keep sharing those numbers with me, but I'm here to remind everybody else, because I don't get like, what did I see, Monica? I don't know that you're here live, but I saw on your Instagram yesterday that you read your 14th book. I was like, dang girl. Like that's just not feasible with where I'm at right now. Right. And so her high end versus my high end are going to be two different things, and you can't compare. You can't compare. Okay. I've read the rest of this comment. Not making it a habit, I promise. Okay, thanks. I don't want you to make a habit of bullying yourself and being, because I mean, truthfully, like I'm not trying to get all like sappy, but we aren't going to hate and hurt ourselves into success. And I want you to think about it as if you were talking to your little sister, or if you were talking to your best friend, or heck, even your mom. Do you think yelling at them and being hard on them is going to get them to do what you want to do? I actually just finished, which, I've moved book reviews into vlogs, which I'm changing something up about vlogs coming very soon, guys. I'm excited. And one of the things so I just finished a parenting book. And one of the things she does a lot in the book is compares if, let's say that same scenario happened for you as an adult. And instead of it being your, like your parent to child relationship, it's your partner, your spouse to you, right? Like, let's say you had a rough day and you did X, Y, Z, and how would you want your parent or spouse or your partner or spouse to react to it? And that's like what your child needs. That's in the parent. I'm paraphrasing and summarizing here, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. So same thing is here with goals, right? Like what would you say to your little sister? What would you say to your best friend? What would you say to your spouse? What would you say to your mom? How would you support them through it? And that's how I want you to think about it when you talk to yourself. I've been doing the good, better, best, but way too many days of not even that. I needed a kick and felt a lot better after the call yesterday. Well, I'm glad you felt better. and our chat, hopefully in the chat helped. This is a great question. How do you write the high end, low end goal on your goal sheet? So what I typically do is I just write the general and then like the general goal. And then I know what the high options are in my head. So mine right now aren't a great example of them. But so for example, because I'm trying to, it's an old example, but this is the example I used to always give for this. And it was just part of my evening routine. And it was tidying up at the end of the day, right? So when we lived in New York and we lived in our 600 square foot 3-bedroom apartment, yes, that I know those numbers don't add up. They were the smallest bedrooms, but 2 of them were offices. So on the high end, right, superhero Laken tidied the whole apartment before bed. The whole apartment, except I didn't touch Sam's office, but the rest of it, the living room, the kitchen, and my office, the bathroom, everything looked tidy and neat before bed. Most days by the end of the day, I don't have that kind of energy. And so I knew that was superhero me. Average days, my average goal was to get my office tidy. As long as my office was in good shape before I went to bed, I felt better about going into the next day. And then the low end was my desk. At the very minimum, can I at least get my desk cleared off? And I could do that 99% of the time, right? There may be one day a month that I just was like, screw it, I'm going to bed. My desk looks like a disaster and I don't care. I would just write tidy on the goal sheet, right? Evening tidy. And I know that those are the options, right? I know that I have a spectrum of choices on what I'm trying to accomplish here. So you could do it that way. You could put little in parentheses what it is. That's easier if, let's say, you're talking about minutes, right? So maybe you have a goal to read every single day and it's like 5, 10, 15 minutes are your different levels. You can just put that in parentheses, like 5, 10, 15. And then in my mind, you get the check mark even if you do the low number. I don't care what I almost knocked my coffee over. I don't care what the proportions are, right, between the different ones. It doesn't matter. That is not what we're going for. We're not going for perfection. We're not saying I'm trying to hit my medium one 65% of the time. No. We're just trying to do it. We're trying to do something. And having the options encourages you to do something. Because if you set on the habit sheet, right, my goal is to read 15 minutes a day, and that's your high end self, then on the days that you're not your high end self, you're going to look at that and go, well, I can't do 15 minutes today and I'm just going to do 0, right? When maybe you could do 5. And so by having it at the low end. Now, the other option here is just that, write the low end on your sheet and always know that you can do more and always know that you can push yourself, right? So in that push yourself might be because you have the energy. It might be because you have the time. It might be because you have to, right? So like right now, my evening tidying also has to incorporate my husband's tidying because he's not here. And so even there were 2 aspects of the evening tidy that used to be like on his plate. And that when he's not here, I still need to do those things because otherwise we're going to wake up in the morning and the dishes aren't done and the toys are everywhere. Those are the 2 things that he always does in the evenings. And so it just says tidy in my evening routine, but I go above and beyond because I like kind of don't have a choice right now. And so you can kind of just to play with it there. Hopefully that was answered your question a little bit. My family's birthdays are all in the first quarter. So if I don't get goals done currently, I'm giving myself grace. I'll catch up next quarter. That's a lot of birthdays. My husband has a similar scenario though, at least all in March. Both of his parents, his stepdad, his sister, his wife, and his anniversary are all in March. With my daily reading goal, it's more reading at night when I go to bed. At least I have to open my book and more if I want. I love that. And it's what is it that you're working towards, right? This is a great example. You could put reading, and I'll do my personal example in a second. So you could put reading, right? And I'm sure Jennifer would get that check mark all day, every day if it was read any time of day, right? She's going to read in the morning. She's going to read during lunch. She's going to get her reading in. But the goal is really to read at night and to read before bed. And so even if it's just 1 page and you get that check mark, but some days you probably have more energy or you're really into the chapter. And so you push yourself a little bit more. And so you have to think about also when it comes to the low, high, medium stuff is what is it that you're trying to get out of, right? So if you have been listening to me talk about my goals, I have a goal to listen to more music, right? And in January, I set a goal to listen to music every day. And I said in my January goals video, if Lila's Tony box counts, if you don't know what it is, it's this little like gizmo that you put a little character on, it plays music or a story. If that counts, I listen to music every day without fail because that girl's going to put on her Tony box when she gets home from anything. So then that would count, right? Then it was, well, Lila and I listen to music while we have breakfast in the morning. And while that's awesome and I love it and we have a dance party, it's good times, that was also not the goal. The goal was to listen to music. That was before Lila and I did that, which I love that sparked. It was nothing, right? We didn't go from listening to something else to listening to music. We went from listening to nothing to having music on in the background. My music goal was about me not listening to, Friends or Gossip Girl for the 800th time and to actually just listen to music when I'm doing stuff. Or listen to my book or a podcast or a YouTube video or whatever. So it was, that's why I changed it to music alone, right? Now, if I still gave myself check marks, I'm still listening to music. But to me, I don't need those check marks. And so I leveled it up to what it makes sense for me. That's kind of related to what we were talking about. Kind of not, sorry. I went on a little bit of tangent there. I did that with my walk. My goal was low end of 30 and most days I will exceed. I usually end up doing 50 and I put 30 on my habits. I love it. And this is when to bring it all back, y'all, this is when that weekly could be an option for you, right? Like, what Allie could do here is she could have a daily goal of 30, but then maybe she sets a weekly goal of something that's a little bit higher than averaging 30 so that she pushes herself for those days that she can push herself. You don't have to do this, it's not a requirement, but it's an option. If you want to see those days that you're getting that high end, or you want to push yourself on the days that you can. And I think, and like, that's again, what I'm trying to do with my vegetables is like, there are some days that even just getting one a day is pushing it. But then there are some days that I could get 2 per day. Like I could. And it wouldn't be that difficult. And I just need to be able to push myself. And so by having it in my weekly section, it pushes me to do that. Pushes me to push myself. I feel like we kind of gone on a bunch of little tangents here, talking about habits and energy and all that kind of stuff, but hopefully this was helpful in some regards. Just remember that there's going to be ebbs and flows, right? Some of you are we talked at the beginning about how so many of us are getting snow right now. Some of you are probably looking at that snow and thinking, oh, it's so beautiful. It gives me so much energy. It's exciting. You're Lorelai Gilmore and you love snow. And some of you are looking out that window and going, ugh, I just want to curl up on the couch and do nothing. No, both are fine. You just got to listen to what makes sense for you and know that it's a cycle. It's a season literally, but and it doesn't mean that it's you're bad or failing, and you don't need to always bully yourself into doing your goals. But you know what I'm saying. Anything else? Any other questions? Any other thoughts? All right. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, I am going to ask you my last question. Where is it? What is the one thing that you are going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What's the one step that you're going to take to make progress? I want to hear what it is. What's the one thing you're going to do? My one thing is the same as last week, and that is 5 minutes of creative time. I didn't do it last week. Not even a minute. I meant to take my coloring book with us to Texas, and I did not pack it. So I had to since I was traveling home with Lila by myself, which by the way, I felt like super mom. That was a milestone. Achievement unlocked was solo traveling. I'm sure some of you did it way before 17 months. And some of you were like, I still haven't gone there because that sounds like not fun. And I totally get it. And I probably would have avoided it for as long as possible as well, if it wasn't like a necessity in our lives. But things had to get cut from the bags. And the coloring book was the one thing that took a cut. So now that we're home, 5 minutes of creative time. Let me hear what you are working. Watch the community call replay, finish the book, finish reading Onyx Storm. Oh my God, it's so exciting. I'll tell you a book secret, guys. For those of you that are still here, I'm rereading fourth wing right now. I needed something comforting. I just needed it. Okay. I just needed it. Plant potatoes, prioritize your scrapbook projects. I love it. I love hearing all about your garden stuff, Jennifer. That's so fun. All right, y'all. Thank you again, as always, for hanging out with me and asking such great questions. If you made it all the way till the end, where's that pop up? Comment with the sneaker emoji. I knew we were going to talk about steps a lot this week. So comment with the sneaker emoji if you made it all the way to the end. And I will see all of you very soon. Thumbs up, subscribe, all the things. Thank you.